So, hi, it's Matt Giggs here, and welcome to a good friend of mine who I've known since I was probably about 13 or 14, something like that, and which is only a couple of years ago. But Dale, you've done extremely well. This is Dale Pinnock. You've done extremely well, making a huge name for himself across the world, selling books worldwide. How many books now, Dale?
18 books. They're in 19 languages in 22 countries, which is crazy.
Bet you didn't imagine that 20 odd years ago, did you?
No, I didn't. I kind of never in a million years, actually.
Which shows everybody that we can do things when we really push ourselves into an area that we're passionate about. And there's absolutely no doubt, having got reconnected with you over the last 8 years, really,
Yeah.
that your passion for what you do is incredible. And tell us a little bit around, for me, just give us a snapshot to people that don't know who you are who are watching this video. Just give us a very good snapshot as to who you are and what you do.
Well, I've been in the nutrition industry actually for 26 years, believe it or not. Pretty much from when I left school, I was starting to move into it and starting to move into the nutrition world in dribs and drabs. So I've been kind of doing this quite a long time. I did my first degree in human nutrition, did a second degree in herbal medicine, did a master's degree in nutritional medicine, and yeah, it's just been a passion that got me quite early on. I mean, nothing really kind of illuminated me in the same way as this did, and it was my own health struggles. Really, I had like sort of skin issues and stuff when I was younger, and it was kind of trying to figure that out that got me onto that path. And then I realized there was so much depth to it. There was so much going on with it, so much potential for it to have multiple levels of impact on our life, that I just became fascinated, and that was it.
You've excelled, my friend, and I'm so proud of you. So keep up the great work, and thanks for giving us just some of your time today. And the idea of this is to share it on Gigs and Company and some of my Facebook profiles to give people some encouragement at the moment right now. And I think encouragement's the right word, not preachiness. We're not saying you should do these things. What we're going to share today is what maybe you do, what I do, in order to in order to cope. So let's start right there. How are you coping right now?
Fine. I mean, I have to be honest, it's business as usual for me. I mean, I've been this is where I run my business from here.
Yeah.
So I've been working from home for 10 years plus, and I'm something of a misanthrope at the best of times, so I'm not like a social butterfly anyway. So it's not life hasn't really changed that much, and a big chunk of my business is online now. I mean, I think certainly what this situation has really driven home for a lot of people is how volatile the old way of doing business is. Bricks and mortar business it's a very, very precarious existence now. But there's so many opportunities for companies in any industry to actually build something that can work virtually. I mean, this situation has really tested so many people as to how far they can push the boundaries in order for their company to evolve, and in order for their business to grow in new ways. In your industry, people doing virtual viewings and things like that. Yeah. You can still carry on. You can find ways of carrying on. And I think that this situation has really illuminated that. So, kind of a bit of a tangent there. I mean, I'm all right at the minute. I mean, I can still go out for a walk and still do stuff. I mean, I miss going out for food, being the professional gannet that I am. But
what have you been doing to kind of stay positive, if you like? Because I've watched some and I've listened to some of your podcasts, and for me, they're really, really good. Very easy to understand messages.
Yeah.
It was back through the one that you put on the other day. It was like those 4 tips that you were giving away.
Oh, just that thing on Instagram. Yeah, that's just like a little Insta video. Basically, for a lot of people that are at the beginning of a health journey, if they've just made that decision that, you know what, I want to eat a little bit better. I need to buck my ideas up a little bit. I mean, need to make some changes. So many people in that situation feel absolutely, completely and utterly overwhelmed
Yes.
because there is a vast amount of information out there. There's so much information being thrown at us from all directions because like nutrition and health and wellness has become such a huge thing and
Yeah.
weirdly has become entwined in popular culture and suddenly has become this aspirational thing. With that has come a lot of faddism, a lot of BS, a lot of nonsense. And I think for anyone that's right at the beginning of this, it must be hellish trying to actually unpack that and make some sense of it and know where to start. So with that simple video, I was like, look, don't be too forensic with every single detail at the beginning, otherwise you'll never start. So many people have that as a boundary to actually stopping them from making progress in the first place. So I say, look, just get in the game, just start making some changes, just start thinking about
Take action.
doing something, and you will start to learn as you go along. It's like, look, I've been doing this 26 years. I haven't got all the answers. So like, don't expect for yourself to have all the answers. Just start. Just decide what one thing you're going to change. It's like, right, as of tomorrow, as of today, as of right now, I'm going to make sure one meal a day is a home cooked meal. I'm going to make sure that I don't snack on chocolate anymore. I'm going to make sure that I have a
Take
really
that one
good
out, by the way. Take that one out. The dark chocolate's all right, is it? Is it?
yeah, dark chocolate's all right. Yeah. It's a little caveat there. Yeah. Anything, just start, and then see how you feel making those changes. See how you respond. See how comfortable you are in that situation, and it will be a constant evolution. You'll constantly be tweaking things and get in the game. So that was number one. Number two is like, get real about what's achievable. So many people try and change everything overnight, and that is a recipe for disaster. If you're living on pizza and beer, and it's like, right, from tomorrow I'm going to become like a raw food vegan yogi. It's like, you're probably not. You do it for 3 or 4 days. You'll be pushed so far out of your comfort zone. You'll be challenged in so many ways. You know what? There's a few people out there. If you kind of subscribe to the David Goggins mentality, awesome, crack on, do it. But there's not many people that can do that successfully. So I'll say, look, be realistic about what thing you can actually change, and change that one thing. Be realistic. Change one thing. Once that becomes the norm, once that habit is ingrained, then move the goalpost, change something else, then something else, then something else. It may look like baby steps, but when you actually look back and look at how much progress you've made in 6 or 12 months, it's a complete lifestyle shift. What else was in? I think that 4 steps. That was a few days ago that I recorded.
Just on those two, it's really important. I was on a call to one of my ladies in the business today, and she's been talking about how unhealthy she's been. And she kind of made a conscious decision last Friday to go, right, do you know what? I've had enough. I'm gonna look at the food that I eat. We were talking today just about drinking water, right? Such an easy thing to do. It's an easy thing to do, but it's easy not to do, because if it's not a habit, you forget about it. And it's actually making very simple, small baby steps. And by the way, the reason why I wanted to stop you there is it's the baby steps that's changed my life in the last 8 years. And going from thinking that I have to do diets to feel better, to lose weight, to just going, what kind of life do I want? Well, I want to feel more energized. So to feel more energized, what are the things that I need to do? And what you've just said there, some of the stuff that I did, I'm talking ages ago, I used to drink beer, lager, all that kind of stuff. Sounds really crazy. I just changed the dynamics of my alcohol intake, which was from those, very, very gassy kind of carbohydrate drinks to then just having a gin and tonic here and there, and actually.
Or a nice red.
Yeah.
I know what's going on.
But I think the thing is, it's ultimately just it's taking small steps. And I think what you've just said about looking back, I'm kind of looking back at my last 8 years thinking, bloody hell, I've come along a long way. But it's been so gradual.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I see this particularly, obviously, like a big chunk of my work is in the mainstream media. So, before this all kicked off, I was doing This Morning 2 or 3 times a month. I do quite a lot of TV and radio and stuff like that. So I come in contact with a lot of people that are in the limelight, so to speak.
Yes.
And some of the ones that have actually been kind of thrust into it, that have suddenly been shoved into it very, very quickly, reality stars especially, they lose their shit very quickly because like their whole world has changed so rapidly that they've not been able to actually adjust themselves to grow with the change. They've not grown into a new way of being.
Yeah.
They've been thrust into it. They've been kicked into it. So that's why you, like, so many of them act up. You get so many of them that, you know, can be quite badly behaved, or they lose their money, or they end up on crystal meth or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? They kind of end up going into some quite dysfunctional directions.
And that's because of that dynamic that you said. People are trying in life. They want to go from here to here overnight. You know, they want to make that shift, that change. And actually, if you look at the success rate of that in anything, like you just described, in the celebrity world, to diets, to, it's very, 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 you know, any quick win normally gives you long-term pain. So
yeah,
I would say at the moment, I mean, looking at where I'm talking to a lot of people at the moment, a lot of people do feel a little bit like they want to get into a routine. They want to improve their health, their well-being, and some people have really connected into that. Some people need some help. What other tips have you got at the moment, Dale, that you would like to share with people that would be watching this, other than just start?
I think also, right at the beginning, you know what, for a lot of people, I mean, especially in these kind of times where there's uncertainty, where there's high anxiety, where there's a lot of stress, I can understand the need for, you know, the comfort that comes with our favourite meals.
Yeah.
You know, that's a real comforting thing. So what I will say to people is give your favourites a facelift.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you like eating pizza, awesome. Rather than order it from one of those delivery places where it turns up and it's like 8 inches thick of white bread, more grease on it than you've ever seen in your entire life, why not make one? Just get like a multi-grain bread mix, like packet mix, or just some whole wheat bread and mix it with water and do it like an unleavened bread. Roll it out flat and then, you know, do veggie toppings, spinach, red onion, mushrooms, olives. Don't go crazy with the cheese, and you've got the same culinary experience, but in terms of how it affects your body is completely different because you've got a whole grain base. It's much lower glycemic impact. You know, you get the blood sugar peaks and troughs. You've got more fiber in there. You've got, you know, obviously the nutritional density of those veggie toppings. It's the same kind of thing. And I'm sure, you know what, if you analyze any food, potentially you could pick holes in it and find reasons why it's not perfect, which doesn't exist anyway. But it's a complete shift. It's like having that same culinary experience, having that soul food element of it, that actual thing of, like, you know, feeding the feel good factor.
Yeah.
But also doing some good for your health at the same time. So that's a really good place to start. Obviously, it can evolve as you get into it, but don't expect to be in somebody's year 10 at your day one. Do you know what I mean? That's a real big thing. So, you know, spaghetti bolognese, amazing. Just switch over to like the whole wheat spaghetti and bulk your ragu 50-50, like mincemeat and red lentils. So one, it goes further, so you can freeze half of it, but also it increases the fiber intake, it like further reduces glycemic impact, yada yada yada. We can talk about all of those kind of details until the cows come home. But simple swaps without, you know, pushing yourself too far is a really good place to start as well. You know, I mean, some people can do this thing where they can just change everything, and if that's really you, fantastic. But for most people, that slow, gradual transition and learning the lessons along the way, this is the important bit. It's like you're making these small changes and you're figuring out how you're, you know, what ones you enjoy. Because ultimately the diet that will work best for you is the one that you'll stick to.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And I think the yo-yo effect is obviously in a lot of people that go to the extremes and then they become really disappointed in themselves afterwards. And actually that then compounds how they feel when they're low. And it's been really hard to get back up again. And I think it's the little wins, I call it. It's the same in business. It's just little wins, little victories all the time. Do the little things really well and the big things look after themselves. It's the same with what you've just described. But we're going through a historic moment, not just in St. Neots, right, where we've grown up and lived all of our lives. What do you think we'll remember when we look back at this historic moment? Because this could, you know, it is history in the making.
It is. Oh, completely. Well, I think there's a lot of things that I'll remember. I really hope one thing I hope, before I kind of think about other observations, I really hope that some people learn out of this to not be driven by fear and by emotion, and can actually at some point start to actually see through that kind of stance. Because like being on social media, it's like, you know, the level of vitriol and panic and sheer, you know, manicism, because understandably people are concerned and scared, but they're just, the fear is amplifying and building and snowballing, and it's, you know, it's really reflective of something that's been really quite pathological in our modern culture. You know,
Yeah, it's a really
because
real issue. It's a freaking real issue, this, that people are really embedded and conditioned by our media.
yes,
And just on that note, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and we know the death rates every day, don't we?
yeah,
What about the survival rates?
oh, like hundreds fold. This is the bizarre thing,
Not
and
get to hear about that. It's crazy, isn't it?
I know, but if you know, if you look on like ONS or WHO, either of their resources, you can see it. You know, when you think there's like, you know, probably the best part of 5 million globally that have become infected, and there's probably in the region of 280,000 confirmed deaths. Um,
And yeah,
it's
yeah, and you know, only 4 weeks ago, the news was really, you know, everyone was talking about how worried they were about Boris. He was in
yeah,
intensive care.
yeah,
Now they're going to fucking send him back there because of the amount of abuse that they're throwing at him. And don't get me wrong, there's a time for accountability, and I think the media have really missed the mark. I think they're really going to hang their heads in shame. I think media outlets, I'm talking the big corporations at the moment, have let the country down hugely in the way
yes,
they're reporting things, because what they're trying to do is every time there's an interview, they're trying to find fault in everything. You know, at the start of this pandemic, we weren't going to have enough beds. We've got enough beds. You
yeah,
know, the testing measures and all these different things. They're trying to trick people up all the time. And it feels like that spread into society now. We've just in friendships, right? It feels like people are judging one another way more than ever now.
yeah,
And actually everyone's looking at each other as a bit of a fucking liar. Look, let's be honest, everyone's lied in their lives. Everyone's made mistakes. Everyone's done things wrong. Get over it, right? You know,
yeah,
that's it. It's the way of the world, you know. I'm sure when Boris did talk about care homes 2 months ago or whatever it was, he said it with the best of intentions. Look, he's done loads of things really well, as he's
yeah,
done loads of things really wrong. The bottom line is we're all human beings, and I'm just like you. Our nation seems to be affected very, very badly by the way we think because of what we.
yes. Yeah, exactly. That's what I really hope will come from this, is people will start to be acutely aware of that. And you know, there's so many examples every day of unity and community and people coming together, and it's certainly shone a light on the best of people.
Definitely.
So if we can maybe like bear a lot of those kind of things in mind and realize that ultimately is what um, truly defines us, then you know, then there's a hope. So you were saying about other things. What else do I see coming? I think, I mean, I think this is the death knell for the high street. You know, I think the traditional high street model of business is um, both feet, one arm, shoulders, and half a head in grave now. I
Yeah.
think there's very, very little chance of it coming back and flourishing in any way. But then you look at online businesses.
Well, yours is an example of that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, mine's like an education business, and that's got, you know, that's got busier than ever in this time. Um, you know, I've got Shopify in my portfolio, and that has changed quite drastically in like the last 3 months. Shopify is going from strength to strength to strength to strength because so many stores are shifting online. They're realizing their operations have got to change, because if you see so many businesses that are in trouble at the minute. If 1 month of reduced sales is pushing a business to the point of collapse, what the fuck were they doing? I mean, like, you know, what on earth was going on with their cash flow? Is their money so like tied up in the bricks
Hand to
and
mouth,
mortar?
hand
You
to,
know,
to mouth. Yeah, and
yeah,
I
and
think,
that's and you know, and that's not a judgment call. It's just
no.
like these situations probably need to, you know, will probably give people the opportunity to reflect on those things, on how they're doing business, and think. You know, I think innovation will come from this.
Well, there's a lot of
But
creativity.
also, I mean, like we put another little bit of a gloomy hat on things. You know, going back to, you know, the actual virus itself. I don't think we're going to get a vaccine at all,
No.
because like, we have a very poor track record with vaccines. What I think we will probably end up doing is determining what the actual clinical treatment protocol will be as we learn more about the actual virus. I think the virus is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's something we've got to learn to live with. But as we learn more about it, we'll realise how to treat it. You know, you think about like HIV right at the beginning, that was the ultimate death sentence.
Yeah.
Now there's so many drug interventions, so many therapies, that it's just a minor embuggerance more than anything else.
Yeah.
Providing you
Can
know,
I
you
just
take the
ask you though,
medication.
Dale, just on that point? I think it's a fantastic point about the fact that let's say there isn't going to be a vaccine,
Yeah.
but preventative measures are nutrition.
It plays a role. It plays a role. I mean, I think it would be flippant of me to say, yeah, nutrition is the answer.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
certainly,
It's one of the answers, isn't it?
well, yeah. I mean, it's a fundamental to a healthy immune system. There is a lot of evidence. I mean, obviously, one of the big things that's involved in the actual pathophysiology of COVID-19,
Yeah,
and the thing that certainly seems to be driving the deaths,
yeah,
is this exaggerated inflammatory response for the immune system. Now, in a lot of people, that was occurring in the lungs. You were getting this, like, it's what's called a cytokine storm. So when you first get an infection with something, your body goes into an inflammatory mode in the area that has become infected. So that virus gets into the airways, and the body responds by triggering localized inflammation. It sends a rush of chemical signals called cytokines. There's different types of cytokines doing different things. The first set that get released are a group of cytokines that switch on inflammation. They do that so that the immune system can arrive at the site of infection very quickly and very effectively. All of the local blood vessels start to dilate, and when they dilate, little gaps form in the walls of them, so that white blood cells of the immune system get called to that area by a process called chemotaxis. They can squeeze through the walls of the blood vessels, they can go into the site of infection, start to deal with it. Then as the immune system gets control, a different set of cytokines are released that reduce the inflammatory response, and the swelling and everything goes down. Now, in COVID-19, what's been happening is a cytokine storm. So that initial inflammatory response doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And the first thing that was identified is that people went into a state called ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome,
right.
which then can give rise to pneumonia. That was killing a lot of people. But
Yeah,
then as we started to learn more and more and more about the virus, it seemed that there was a lot of microclotting. It wasn't necessarily pneumonia that was killing. There was respiratory distress. There was this inflammatory damage within the lungs. But ultimately, what was flooding the airways and what was actually killing people were cardiovascular events that were either at the micro level, like thousands of microclots in the lungs that would reduce the ability of the lungs to function, or as we're starting to see now, people are getting heart damage from it, they're getting kidney damage from it. There's even, like, you know, a small amount of children that are getting things like Kawasaki disease, where you've got an inflammation of blood vessels. So it's not necessarily just purely a respiratory thing. It's a virus that triggers an aggressive inflammatory response. Now, vitamin D has been under the spotlight for some time in terms of its ability to reduce the cytokine storm. What vitamin D can do is actually pull down, or at least reduce the expression of those pro-inflammatory cytokines, so that if someone does get that infection, it doesn't stop them getting infected, but what it could potentially do is reduce the severity of the immune system's response to that particular infection. And that is a big key in in the actual pathophysiology. So that's something that's been studied quite a lot, and there is a vast amount of data. This isn't something like on from like a centre page spread in Vogue. We're talking like massive cohort studies. We're talking double-blind, randomised, placebo-controlled trials with cohorts of.
I mean, you sound like a real St. Neots lad when you're talking, right? So not really. I mean, you've got international kind of connections. You work around the globe. You've done so many different things. And it sounds to me like you've done an awful lot of not research, or just you're trying to understand this virus in itself. And
I'm very lucky because obviously with my training, with my degrees, they're very much cemented in anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pathology, differential diagnosis, all of those kind of things. So it is a medical science background, but rather than sort of general medicine, it's like just nutrition as a specialism.
Yes.
So I feel very glad that I've got that background at the minute, so that you can look at all of this madness that's being thrown at us, and look at the numbers with that kind of analytical head on. Look at the actual what's being reported clinically, and start to look at things and make connections. And
this is what I'm saying, though. But if you look at it, Dale, there's things that we can control to improve our health, which will decrease the severity of the virus, I suppose, is my simple layman's terms kind of explanation. Being outdoors, you can see that they're encouraging people to be outdoors, obviously, which is they have done from the off. It's just they've improved the amount of time that you can go and spend outside. For me, how you improve your immune system, give us some ideas around that, if it's linked.
Yeah, so vitamin D is the big one. I would say you need to be taking around about 2,000 to 3,000 international units. When you look at the labels on vitamin D, you'll see the dosage is delivered in IU, international units. About 2,000 to 3,000 international units a day. Zinc is very important. The mineral zinc. I mean, you can get that in a supplement, or you can increase your intake of things like shellfish, prawns, scallops, walnuts, pumpkin seeds. They're really rich in zinc. But to get that good whack of about 20 milligrams a day, then you're looking at a supplement that is actually used by white blood cells to manufacture genes that control the way in which those white cells respond to specific stimuli. So it just helps to make sure that everything's running effectively. Ultimately, definitely keep it away from refined sugars. Refined sugars can decrease white blood cell count quite significantly, and also reduce their motility. Certain types of mushroom extracts like reishi mushroom, maitake, shiitake, Coriolis mushrooms. Again, you'll get these in supplements. They contain certain types of sugars, these long chain polysaccharides that can actually increase the production of certain types of white blood cell and make the white blood cells a little bit more aggressive in terms of their response to pathogens.
Wow. I mean, for me, all you can do is focus on what you can influence, focus on what you can control, do the right things for you as an individual to improve your health, your well-being, in order to stave any virus, let alone the coronavirus. But Dale, look, I know we had a very limited window of time this morning. Are there any last bits of advice? And by the way, just quickly, total respect to what you're doing on your online courses. Can you just quickly tell us how to access that?
Well, if you just go onto my website, just go onto dalepinnock.com, and you'll see online programs.
What will they get?
Yeah, so there's two on there at the minute. There's one that's like a weight management program called Diet Another Day, and then there's the big one, which is the diploma in culinary medicine. This is actually a full-on accredited diploma in the science of using food as medicine. It's about a year long. If you really go at it hammer and tongs, it's pretty advanced. It's open to all levels. Literally, our student body ranges from high school students to GPs.
Wow.
So it's very, very, very broad. But the level is pretty intense. It's built around understanding the anatomy, the physiology, the biochemistry, then how that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And how nutrition fits into the picture when that goes wrong, either as a causative agent or as a potential therapeutic agent. Then how you build diet plans and different things around that. Yeah, there's over 1,000 students on every single continent. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Good for you, mate. And any last take? I mean, that's a great thing. I'd advise anybody to look at. You know, look around your site, not just for those courses, but for the recipes that you've got on the books that you've produced as well. Which I've got some of your books, not all 18. But I know that you do this because you are passionate about it. Fundamentally, your purpose is about giving people the knowledge and the education and the awareness to go and make those changes in their lives to improve their lives. And I think for me, that's why I wanted to talk to you today, get you to share some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Any other last bits before we go? We've got a minute left.
I'll just say, you know, as we've touched on so many times, just change what you can, and don't put ridiculous amounts of pressure on yourself to have everything figured out, because you're not going to have everything figured out. Just start making positive changes that you know you can make. Don't overstretch yourself from a budget point of view. Don't overstretch yourself from, like, you know, whatever your skill in the kitchen is. Don't try and be this idea of perfection. Just do what you can. Any positive step in the right direction will start to have cumulative benefit. It will just keep improving and improving and improving. So take steps, any steps that you feasibly can, that you're comfortable with, that fit into your lifestyle, and just go from there.
Dale, you've been incredible. You never ever fail to amaze me. You've honestly got so much knowledge and so much to share. So I just want to say thank you for giving up your time today. We're going to share this around St. Neots first, and hopefully it will go worldwide as we inspire the world to make better decisions. Right. Dale, thank you very much. I hope you've all enjoyed this, for whoever's watched it, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you again, Dale. Take care.